Welcome to Happy Times and Places. I'm Toby Hadoke and I like Doctor Who, so I've got a friend of mine to watch a Doctor Who story, to choose their favourite things about it, and then I watch it, talk all the way through it, see if I can guess what their favourite things are, and at the end, see if I win.
Hi Toby, it's thanks for having me on. For the multitudes out there who don't know me, my name's Jeremy Radick and I played Gareth in the Doctor Who TV movie, and for the past 25 years I've been shamelessly exploiting that to get me into exciting predicaments like this. And now it's brought me here to my basement to talk to you about Inferno.
Welcome back. It's episode 6 of Inferno. Let us see what that has in store, and then what is happening in the alternative world inhabited by my guest, Jeremy Radick, who is going above and beyond the call of duty, but that's probably because he's living in a state where duty is sort of enforced and you get shot if you don't do it. So he's only following orders from a fascist version of myself. Let's see what's happening in episode 6. So I will hike the volume up just a little bit, and we are going to press play in... I've got to go to episode selection, actually, is what I'm doing. And I have to go next to episode 6. Oh, it's getting very exciting. The epic is reaching its conclusion, and very much so for many in this episode, as we press play or select in 3, 2, 1, go. So I've had a bit of a break between episodes 5. I've done this one in stages. I don't know why. Sometimes I do these in one epic go, and sometimes I leave a bit of a gap. That's okay. Either way is fine. There are no rules. Those rules that there are, I forget. In fact, I'm not sure I can remember the things that I've chosen. So we'll have to see how that goes. This is where the lava really hits the fan, because this is the sort of the last episode in the alternative Earth, and I can't choose the cliffhanger to this one, can I? Because I've already chosen one cliffhanger. I narrowly chose the last cliffhanger, and I remember reading the Doctor Who magazine because I had the one with the episode guide of this. Yeah, is that wise? Is that wise when you've got a monster that looks the way that it does to go, I shall showcase it by having it stare right at us? Not many monsters have stared right at us, but the ZZ Top beasts do. I still don't know. How do we feel? They look, I have to say, they look much, much better, the Primords, than they did to my young eyes, where I was so ashamed of, well, everything. So yeah, I didn't want the thing I loved to make me feel shameful. And it's great, isn't it? Because they're so hot, they can be at least repelled, even though they're deadly and clearly fearsome and can create mortal peril. They can be discouraged, shall we say, by a burst of something cheap, readily available, recognisable, but that also makes total sense and is easy to achieve and works for telly that has to be appropriate for kids. This the choice to have this background noise is so effective. Sound is one of the, I think, undersung aspects of Doctor Who, and I'm not talking about the music here either. If you think about those, that every sort of time they tap, the rickety TARDIS console in the 80s, relatively rickety, do you know what I mean? And you get a boom and a beep and a blonk. They're obviously all special sounds that really help to sell what would otherwise be, make the noise of light switches. And the 60s, when I did Running Through Corridors with Rob Shearman, as we did the 60s and some of the stories that only existed by soundtrack alone, but actually everything has a weird aural ambience that transports you as much as the pictures do. And actually, the what about the screams of the Primords here? I mean, we're having to imagine that the sort of the smoke is hitting everybody, because obviously some are sort of going that aren't really being hit, but this is great. This is as grown up as Doctor Who ever felt to me, even though it's basically a fascist with a fire extinguisher pointing at a border collie. So that's the dignified actor Olaf Pooley, with a wig and wolf dentures in. I do an excellent mobile Scotty dog. No, he will definitely come to again. So yes, I feel. I've talked about Olaf. I'm sure. I feel a bit sad for him that the one story we knew about him was that he refused to wear the primal makeup. Turns out he's pretty much one of the actors, though. Walter Henry gets released from his contract. I wish this smoke was a bit speedy. Actually, no, that's okay. It just doesn't look like it's sort of shooting out, which would obviously repel them with the sort of force of that. It's a bit wafty, and the actors are having to sell it, but that's fine. I'm just talking about. It actually looks pretty good at the moment, but as I say, it's sort of floating out rather than directional, which I think would just. I don't know. As I say, looking at it there, it doesn't look as worrisome as it did to teenage me. The red filter on all of this external stuff on the decaying alternative Earth, the inflamed alternative Earth. See, there's no smoke coming out now. The camera should be a little bit higher. I assume we're supposed to be thinking that smoke is coming out there, but that was a bit. That wasn't very carefully done. I like Derek Newick's sort of quiet heroism. He knows that they're going to die, but he's prepared to put all of his last life energy into saving somebody he barely knows. But so he's a brave man. And I will come back to Walter Henry, the missing Primord. Was it when I first read about this story? Well, when I first read about this story, it was the episode endings. So I didn't know that the brigade leader and the brigadier were the same. I was quite young. I'd only got the episode endings, so I hadn't quite picked up the subtleties of what the story was. So there was this brigade leader who popped up quite a lot, and I knew got killed because he gets killed just before the episode ending, so that was in the episode ending, because the episode guide in Doctor Who magazine basically gave you the episode endings of each episode and the cast list. But of course the brigade leader wasn't in the cast list, so he was a great mystery to me until I then read about the story a bit later. And of course they're all alternative Earth versions of each other. The little smile the brigadier gives there is a glorious moment, because he bawls out Sergeant Benton. And remember, this is very early in the sort of unit family, as we call it. He bawls out Sergeant Benton, but there's a little smile there going, I'm not really cross with him. And now some would say that leads to unit getting a little bit too cozy later on, and I think there's a fair argument there, but I rather like it, because he needs to bawl Benton out then, but we don't want him, we don't want him to seem like a bully, as indeed his alternative world version is, and he gets his smiles from sadism. Hello. You're not, for all his braveness and the fact that he's obviously, pretty tough in the oil fields and probably hard drinking at the bar, he's I think he could be better with the ladies, old Craig Sutton. And of course the brigadier was and before we cut back, we talk about Sir Keith Gold being dead. And when I first read about this story, obviously, the first we hear of Sir Keith in the alternative universe is that he's died in a car accident, and that in Doctor Who always seems to me so much more grown up. Somehow, death by embolism, no, death by immolation, death in an explosion, death by murder at night, mysterious death getting dragged under the waves. But death in a car accident suddenly makes you, God, I'm in the real world. Now, as it turns out in the plot, the car accident, even in the alternative world, was probably engineered by Stallman's machinations. In the alternative world, you'd assume he probably could have actually just had him killed, whereas this one, the car accident is an accident which doesn't kill Sir Keith, is an accident caused by the driver having to drive him off-piste and then apologising. So it's an accident, and actually not a lethal one. But the idea that somebody dies in a car accident somehow makes the story seem to be in grown-up, more grounded areas of drama that suddenly take it up a notch or two to me, where you can get inured to, death by laser or disintegration, but suddenly a car crash really brings it home, because I guess we've been touched in some way or another by a motor accident that's killed a friend or a friend of a friend or a loved one or whatever. And whenever the real world sort of jabs into Doctor Who, it actually gives it more credibility, makes it seem more stark, which this story certainly benefits from. So Walter Henry was a Crinoid a Primord in, I think, episode 5, and asked to be released from his contract. Now, I'd always, because he's only in the one episode, I'd sort of thought, what they do is maybe they get Walter Henry in to play Stallman after Olaf Pooley refuses to wear the makeup, but that doesn't seem to be the case at all. So I don't know why Walter Henry wanted to be let go, because he was largely a walk-on. He's the patron in the City of Death who serves them the double waters. So and I think he does extra work in other in other Who's, but so actually his only credited role, for which he'd have got paid a lot more and been entitled to residuals, good residuals and stuff. Although I think equity members who are extras get some residuals. I don't know. It would have been quite a decent deal to him. So I don't know where he went. I don't know if he got a better offer. I'm watching the Primords quite closely now. They do a good job, and yes, the sound of that scream that they have, their howl that is augmented by the electronics. It's good, because sometimes I think electronics added to organic creatures sells them short a bit. So like the Silurian voices in Warriors of the Deep, you go, why do they sound like robots when they're creatures? But actually, the electronic augmentation of the roars, I think, gives them a primal of the earth, sort of ancient, and that thing about sort of Krakatoa screaming and stuff. They do like looking at the cameras, the Primords, don't they? I mean, it's rule 1 as an actor, you don't look at the camera, but obviously rule 1 in Inferno is look at the camera as much as possible. Oh, there were fingerprints on the door then. But again, they're quite effective on the big screen that I'm watching them on here. It sort of works. I think because the noses aren't quite so stark as they are on that film sequence of Benton. And this is great sort of Sunday afternoon fare. I was brought up on the most memorable movies that we watched when I was younger were the Poseidon Adventure, which was always a welcome classic in the house, and we must have watched 100 times. The Great Escape, the Towering Inferno. So Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno particularly are sort of, disaster movies where a group of people are trapped in a situation that looks terrible, and gradually, one by one, they die off, and sort of cruelly, part of the fun, if you like, is going, I don't want them to die, or I'm glad that you're allowed to be glad somebody died if you're watching a television program and they're an awful person, or oh no, I didn't want them to die, I'd have traded them for that other character actor. Whereas of course this does the brilliant thing of it actually kills everybody. Well done, Petra, who's also sweaty. They're all sweaty. This is good. And I like the principle behind this, of the bully getting stood up to by the more timid person, but actually the philosophy that she espouses, that is, don't yell at me. And what I love about this is how gradually more and more impotent the man with the gun gets, how more and more, well, how more flaccid his control of the situation gets, if you like. That's a great shot of a Primord basking in the heat. And again, I'm watching this for the first time on quite a decent sized screen, and this is because it's on film and it's treated and it's NSTC conversion, it probably doesn't look quite like it did, and it might have looked a little bit clearer originally, but it still looks absolutely great. And the fact that Pertwee and Newark and these guys, that they're bathed in sweat, ties are undone. Again, this is quite unusual. This again puts it more in the camp of the stuff I watched with everybody else. The Towering Infernos, the Poseidon Adventures, and anything that sort of would have passed muster with the grown-ups or the cool people, or the people, because I was the youngest, you see, of everybody who thought that my things were about, childish fripperies. Anything I did by its very nature, because I was the youngest. So anything that could sort of pass muster in that world was somehow, made me feel good about it and me. It's very Doctor Who. It's you're putting, and at least they acknowledge it and go, you're putting the entire output of a nuclear reactor through two cables and a plug. But of course now, I was going to say, of course now technology's got much smaller and I don't know. I've got no idea what you can do with the output of a nuclear reactor. I don't know if I like the way that Liz gets Saki here. It's quite arch, but it is a good moment, and I like the way she's because the way that she shakes is she still tries to maintain her erect posture. Dr. Freud is sitting under the sofa and is whispering to me about my mother during this, but she maintains her erection, if you like, as it shakes, in order that she still contains her composure as she sort of gives the brigade leader the BDI, Liz Shaw, and goes, yeah, you're not quite as in control as you thought you were. And of course, with Stallman either unconscious or looking at his reflection in the camera lens, do my teeth look big in this? The main baddie in this episode is the Brigadier, essentially, but our fascist version. And of course, that smile that the Brigadier gives Benton is, of course, in stark contrast to the way that this grim-faced, he's got his bottom lip is curled in a permanent sort of grimace, stony grimace in this. Oh, be quiet, Alexa. And I don't know what Alexa's trying to do. And is this where it does? And I think Sheila Dunn does the working under pressure sort of stuff very, very well. I think vocally she's occasionally a bit shrill in this, and it's hard to do. And I do wonder if the character would have been better with a Kate O'Mara type. But I think she does that. I think she does the working under pressure stuff very, very well. You can tell a certain generation of these people have seen, Derek Newark saw active service. Derek Newark killed people in the Middle East when he was, a soldier in he wasn't in the Middle East. Where was he? Listen to my podcast. But he was on active duty and quite close hand-to-hand combat. So when some of these actors are being, looking at very, very grim situations, what they have to call on as an actor is, genuine and stuff that my generation of actors should thank their lucky stars they sort of don't have. But I think it gives them a sort of genuine, I love all this, the Primords charging through this, and there's Benton the Primord, charging through the gasometers. That's great stuff on film. But yeah, this generation of actors have memories of stuff that they actually went through. So it's not cowboys and Indians. You know what I mean? It's I mean that in terms of, I was saying, invoking the genre there of cowboys and Indians. You know what people say about playing in the school playground. But you know, these people lived it. And I think that does give it a genuine sort of backbone to the action that we perhaps cannot replicate. And you know, aren't we lucky? They'll be voted alive. I like the way he adds aliveness. It's brilliant the way that he fluctuates between sadistic bully and frightened man. Unfortunately, and if he did shoot him in the guts now, I love that. He does actually shoot him, but he hasn't got any bullets. So that's pretty grim, because he would have shot him at close range in the stomach. And I love Newick's line about "you'd only be doing me a favour." That is so harsh. I unfortunately don't think this fight's very good, and I'm afraid I think it's down to Nicholas Courtney, who's not great at. Actually, again, it's not as bad as I remember. Why did it? And I love that shot of Sutton. I actually like the Doctor at the end of Survival with his arm raised, but here with the TARDIS and the Doctor behind him, that is a terrific shot. And the reminder of the Doctor. Is this how you're gonna end your lives? You know, fighting like animals. I think that, or whatever it was he said. I think that's. I may have been invoking Survival there, but it's interesting that it does echo that sentiment of the final story. And she's gone and been really, really brave. Well done, Petra, and I love the fact that he goes back for her. I'm having a bit of a bromance with. Got a man crush on Greg Sutton, and I'm a 100% heterosexual gentleman. But you know, if Greg Sutton and I ended up on a desert island together, who knows what would happen after a few years? But how did I get onto that? But that fight was not as bad as I'd remembered. I do have a thing about Nicholas Courtney not being great at fighting, and he admitted this himself. Is that he doesn't bend his fist when he punches people. He sort of punches people like a sort of action figure. And I think he wasn't particularly comfortable with action scenes, and I don't think they're his strongest suit. But that fight was okay. The expression on the brigade leader's face when he was punched was slightly not favoured by the angles and comical. But anyway, we're accentuating the positive, and there's so much that's great. I love the fact that Jack Kine is looking over his shoulder as he's pointing the gun, and that's a great shot. And this whole face-off is brilliant, because you totally understand. I love the fact that he then shoots the gun to indicate that it is loaded. And you totally forget that this is the same actor, that this is Nicholas Courtney. As the Twinkly Brigadier, yes, and of course what we know now is that the gunshot was not fired by Caroline John because she was pregnant. It was done by somebody else, so that she didn't have to be too close to it. But it totally works, and it's pretty no nonsense. And then you've got the threads, basically, where we got the end of the world and loads of forlorn looking extras. And this is great. All this chargy stuff was that, and it's stock footage of a volcano. Some red tinge, a few extras charging about. Love it. And then back to the people, and it's so short, but we have totally got what's going on. I love the lighting of that. That's a very good special effects shot, actually. And the fact that it's got whatever that metal tower falling over. We could have maybe done with a little bit more of seeing buildings being hit by the lava, but that is incredible. And the killing of the brigade leader is superb, and needed to happen, if you like. He's going to die 15 seconds later anyway, or whatever, half a minute later, as we discover. But Doctor Who does what it can never, ever do. and it's the end of the world. And isn't that sad? Because Walter Henry is in this episode, but he's not in. I think he's not in the next episode. So yeah, he was. I'm sure he asked to be released from his contract, which is an odd one. But maybe he just had something else to do. Maybe he had to go on holiday. Doesn't matter. Only I care. The end of it's the end of the world, lads. Jeremy Davis is a very nice person as well, and still looks probably younger than I do. Good designer. He designed the first Dalek story. He designed episode 6 of the first Dalek story. To give Ray Cusick a bit of respite, so he goes back to the very, very, very early days. So what's the best thing about episode 6? That is brilliant, by the way, episode of Doctor Who. It's almost... I think it should almost be illegal for me to be able to talk through it, but it's got everything. It's action-packed. How funny. The 3 things I thought I would have to not talk about, but inevitably would talk about. The primords, the steam coming out of the pipe, and the last fight that I all thought would fall short, actually weren't problematic to me at all in that episode. If I'm going to choose a favourite thing from that episode, it's got to be the end of the world, guys. The end of the world as we know it. It has to be that Doctor Who does what it can never do, because of the brilliant wheeze of the alternative world, is that the world ends, the Doctor loses, and that gives us obviously that brilliant cliffhanger, which I can't choose another cliffhanger again, but that means I sort of am, and with that it means it can kill the regulars, and we have the emotional impact of that. And not great last thoughts, but Greg Sutton must be thinking, God, if we'd done this 24 hours earlier, at least I could have... Anyway, but there we go. So poor old Greg and Petra die without ever doing the deed. I'm sure there are greater tragedies, but... right, so Inferno episode 6. What is happening in the alternative universe where Jeremy Radick is undergoing his own Mohole project?
Well, welcome back for episode 6 of Inferno to talk about what our favorite things are. In that episode, I am Brigade Underleader Jeremy Radick, speaking for the duplicate version of Jeremy Radick, who we are still interrogating. I have to say, though, he's making some good points about the impending apocalypse, and frankly, that's sort of what I feel is the best thing about this episode too. And he agrees. This sort of bleak, apocalyptic tone. I don't think that this duplicate world the Doctor has encountered is gonna make it out of this one. I mean, I'm rooting for it. It seems really like a cool place, but it doesn't seem like it's going to work out too well, which is worrying. But I do feel that tone and showing us what an implacable hero like the third Doctor in this particular case is encountering, and the fact that he might actually lose and maybe only escape with his life and be able to help his original world. That's probably a very unusual thing, and it leads to this overall more grave and serious and consequence-filled tone. It's unusual to see heroes in these types of stories lose and lose so seriously as they do in this one. And it's kind of a brilliant turn, as it were. You expect the Doctor to win, and he's clearly not winning on this planet. And I have to say, it did hit a little bit close to home to me in this particular tense, because it turns out the scientists have told us that this is pretty much it. The world's breaking apart, and we have a very little time left. I'm going to help the duplicate get back, try to do one good thing. Hopefully he doesn't notice, doesn't take too kindly to kindness. The leader does, but I am going to send my duplicate back home. I think it's the best thing to do, and this is it. The world's ending. Overall, it's a bit of a bummer. But I did get to see a pretty good episode of television before. I think I really could have become a fan of this show. How many episodes are there, Duplicate Jeremy? How many seasons of the 26? I don't have time to watch all those, do I? No. All right. Well, I saw a good one at last. So, anyways, hopefully I can send him back home, and he will continue the transmissions once he arrives. Let's see if you can guess what both the final episode's favorite thing is, and also what the favorite thing that the duplicate Jeremy thought of the Inferno story as a whole. So, good luck. Hope you can stop that drilling. And yes, it was nice chatting with you. Take care.
Well, we're in accord. So I'm going to notch that up as a point to me, because I can't actually remember. I'm going to have to go away. Well, not go away, but when I stop recording this episode, actually tot up the points from the previous episodes, because I can't actually remember what I chose, what Jeremy chose, and where we stand in the scorings. So I'll do that before I get to episode 7. But then I'm going to do that imminently. I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna put out the I'm gonna douse the Inferno and move on to pastures cooler. But for you, that is not until the next episode. So in a few days' time of Happy Times and Places. So continue drinking that water and wiping away that sweat as you remain for one final agonizing time in the grips of the alternative universe. And I shall speak to you next time. And when you turn around, none of you will be wearing eye patches. Until then, take very, very good care. Thank you for listening as ever. And goodbye. Thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places with me, Toby Hadoke, and my special guest, Jeremy Radick, who is at Jeremy Radick on Twitter. I would like to extend heartfelt thanks to patrons who include Ruben Herfindahl, Peter Harness, Rob Leonard, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Jenny at Bluebox 99, Paul Cook, Peter Crocker, Rob Dawson, John Deere, Chris Dunford-Kelk, Chris Phone, Jason Gorman, Siobhan Galichon, Ian Key, Joe Llewellyn, Darren Mackay, Barry Platt, Matthew Newton, Melvin Pena, Keith Perry, Jonathan Potter, Dylan Rees, John Rivers, Matt Sawyer, Keith Say, Len Stewart, Neil Tate, Nick Tedston, Nick Temple, Sabrina Tirabassi, Reynard Toombs, Apollo C. Vermouth, Gary Wales, Adam Westwood, Rich Wiggins, Michael Williams, Andrew Willis, and Stephen White. The music for this podcast is by Dave Gates. This is the voice of a man who keeps trying to find an interesting way of enticing you to patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. What's there? Oh, all sorts. Early access, exclusive material. It's quite an egalitarian system. There are various tiers, but most stuff is available from the lowest. It's mostly, of course, that you are way in advance of the releases that are available to the general public, but there are other bits and bobs as well. Monthly AMAs, exclusive videos, exclusive non-Doctor Who commentaries, and basically you sort of dictate, because I interact with everybody and see what it is that you would like. It starts from as little as £3 a month. If you go for a year in advance, you get a 10% discount, and it's quite fun over there. So if you can join in, that would be very much appreciated. I understand that that's not everybody's bag, and there's also Ko-fi, where you can just do a one-off donation whenever you like, kofi.com/Toby Hadoke. But what I'd really like, because I know that times are financially trying, and I don't expect anybody to fund my nonsense. I'm flabbergasted and grateful that people do, but I could really do with good algorithms. How do we make your algorithms good, Toby? Well, you oil them up with a 5-star review on Apple or anywhere else, and perhaps even a line or two about why you like these podcasts. But those 5-star reviews really do help to separate this from the crowd and get more people out there listening, which is really helpful to me. So if you could do that, doesn't take you any time, doesn't cost you anything, and I would be very, very, very grateful. and so would my algorithms be, and they'd flash you. That's taking a turn for that. Well, that metaphor's not going where I wanted it to. So I'm just, as I say, I don't think anyone's listening anyway, so I could say anything, couldn't I? I could say Elvis is alive. I saw him working at a cafe on the Old Kent Road. But because nobody listens to this bit, that exclusive is lost forever, like the Dalek Master Plan Episode 8, although I've got that as well, got that in my attic. But of course I can tell you this because nobody's listening. Waits for rumours. I'm a live comic too. I do live comedy at Excess Malarkey Comedy Club in Manchester every Tuesday at 8 p.m. I'm the compere, the waffly glue that sticks a lineup of excellent live stand-up comics together. That's at 8 p.m. every Tuesday, Excess Malarkey Comedy Club in Manchester. That's probably a long way away for some of you, but we do a online show now, thanks to the success of being forced to go online during lockdown, once a month from the first Sunday of August at twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey. Excess Malarkey also has a Twitter feed, as do I, at Toby Hadoke, and these podcasts at Hadoke Podcasts. So, I mean, do all of that because I'm sure you've got nothing else to do apart from do all my stuff. I sometimes think I should just have a sit down, but I'm actually sitting down. No, I think as I do this, I'm sitting. I think what I mean is and you've probably got some sympathy with this. I should just shut up. I'm going to shut up now. All this needed to do was be a plug for Twitter and the Comedy Club, and I've tried to make it interesting, and as a result, I've done the complete opposite. And I mean, if you think it's awful listening to me, try actually being me. It's a constant burden. I'm going to be quiet now. You promise? Yes. Shut up then. Right. Bye.